We're also on YouTube, but I have like 4 followers or something.
Okay.
So
hey, everybody! First of all,
nobody's here yet. Oh, we got one.
You're gonna introduce us.
We're just gonna wait till a few more people join on, and me and Chris will continually just walk on all over each other trying to talk. And me and Chris will continually.
Who's got the sound going? Is that Brandon?
What?
You got your sound on as well?
No, I was on my phone, but.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I turned it off. Volume anyway.
So, Greg, introduce.
All right, we got a few people joining us here, so we'll get started. Thanks for watching. We are here with Brandon Millichamp. He is one of the co-hosts from the Canadian Herp podcast. I don't want to say the full name.
Herpetoculture.
Yeah, and he's got a huge hognose collection. So we thought we'd have him on, talk about something a little bit different today. Talk about your giant hogs.
The giant hog jokes.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll probably just keep happening.
Exactly. So maybe start off just telling us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we know you, but there may be people out there that don't know you very well, and let us know. Just give us a kind of a bit of a background on you.
Well, I started keeping snakes when I was about 10. My dad got a boa constrictor, and that kind of sparked my interest into reptiles in general. She's still around with us, actually. She's 17 years old. She's a normal boa constrictor. She's a big girl, about 8 feet. And ever since then, I was just fascinated by snakes and lizards. I got some.
Oh.
Lizards.
It'd be weird if he wasn't frozen.
I was able to start keeping my own reptiles. But yeah, I started keeping my own reptiles on my own when I was about.
Yeah.
Oh crap!
You're on dial-up.
I'll fix that. Hold on. Just a second.
Yeah, I wish I could post stuff in the chat. I can't post anything in the chat.
You can if you go on your phone in the live, like on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's actually easier that way because through this app, I can't like reply to people. I can just post.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I started keeping reptiles on my own when I was about 20. I started off with a couple boas. I still got my first boa. She was a Central American motley. I got 3 boas in total. But I eventually found Madagascar giant hognoses and found them just appealing. Nobody really was working with them at the time. And they're wild-caught imports, so that was a learning curve. I've never dealt with wild-caught animals prior to that. So I bought a pair, and unfortunately my male died of some sort of parasites. I got a necropsy done on him, but they weren't too sure what killed him, but they were sure it was parasites. So that was unfortunate. But I had a hard time keeping males ever since, up until recently. I had lots of females. Over the years, I accumulated 4 adult females that were wild caught from various years and started building my collection. Bought a pair of unproven breeder giants. And about 6 months later, the male proved out for me and produced a clutch. So that was last year. And that was pretty fantastic for me. First set of snakes that I've actually produced myself.
Nice.
So yeah, I never
breeding anything.
Yeah, it was my first time breeding anything. So
Nice.
That was a pretty big achievement because not many people are doing it, and it's not the easiest species to breed.
No. There is somebody you did get some babies from.
I think that was you. You bred them once too, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Have you been able to do it since, or?
Last year I didn't try with the show and stuff. I didn't. The 2 years, it was 3 years ago when I had the babies. 2 years ago I didn't because of the show, and then last year, the same thing. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So this year, putting it back together, the females looking nice and plump. So
That's good.
hoping to get some eggs soon. But we'll see.
Yeah, I cooled mine for 2 months just at room temperature because that worked for me the year before. And I paired them up recently. So the male's all over the female, but she doesn't want anything to do with them yet. So see what happens. And then
sounds like a great story.
That wasn't the direction I was going, but okay. How old are they? Like, what's typical breeding size or age for them?
So most of my imports that I have are 2016 imports. So I have one import that I got this year. I'm not entirely sure how old he is because they're wild caught, so it just varies. So you don't really know how old they are, but I've had most of mine since 2016. Some of them I think are 2017 imports, but I'm not entirely sure because some people just get them. They're like, I think I got them at this time, but I'm not sure. So yeah, I've been trying to keep track of what time that they come in, what year, and all that. So just better tracking for me. But it's hard to keep track of.
They were coming in as adults, so I'm assuming, right?
Some of them were. I got one this year that was a juvenile, so he's not full grown yet, and it's a male. And males are typically larger, so he's not nearly as big as my other male yet. He's about the same size as some of my females, so he's got a little bit of growing to do before he's able to breed. So I have more distinct bloodlines because I got 3 adult females. So I'd like a few more males just so I can have distinct bloodlines for future reference.
Yeah.
Nice. So
well, I'm sure. We got Grant Crossman from out east. I noticed him. Tyrone's come in. Danielle. I'm sure quite a few other people that we didn't see pop in. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Not just on your shirt, but hey, Ty.
It's funny, we were going to be twins, but I may need a bigger size.
I got Chris's shirt on. He's in the chat.
Chris is.
I got my. This thing goes backwards. I try and adjust this the wrong way. My Mouse Man hoodie showed up, Tyrone. Thanks, buddy. I was gonna wear it, but it's too warm.
Yeah, it's pretty warm out today, which is nice.
Yeah, it was nice out. Today was definitely a Mustang day. It's, hopefully it lasts and we don't get snow tomorrow.
The Mustang or the weather?
Maybe both. We'll see.
Yeah. The Mustang, definitely. Yeah, never mind. I'm not going there.
All right. Well, why don't you show off some of your animals? Show us your big hogs.
My big hogs.
So just because Danielle asked while he's grabbing it, Brandon works with a lot of the hognose species. So the not the North American hognose species, the South American hognose species, the African species. Actually, sorry, no, he doesn't have any South American. He's got the African species, the Madagascar species, the Madagascar giants, the speckleds, the blondes. All that kind of cool stuff. So yeah, we got lots of our friends in here. This is great.
Yeah. I queued up a video of the hognose playing dead. I think that's the most coolest part about the at least North American ones.
Here's a question I got for you, Brandon. Have you had any of your giant hogs ever play dead?
Nope, not even as hatchlings.
Allegedly, they also do it, but I've never seen it. None of my hatchlings did it. They all hood up like little baby cobras, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I've never had a giant hognose play dead.
Yeah, I've never had my giants, speckleds, or blondes do it. So.
Yeah. You guys are pretty big. Sorry, and what is this one? This is the blonde?
This is the giant female.
Oh, okay.
This one's my female, yeah. So I was weighing some of my females during burmation, or whatever you want to call it nowadays, cooling. And my female was 800 grams and my male was 1,800 grams. So there's quite a bit of size difference there.
How long is she?
Probably 4.5, 5 feet. Somewhere in between there.
Nice and thick for a colubrid too.
Yeah, they're a lot larger than most colubrids.
Yeah.
They're diurnal too, so that's pretty cool. So they're active during the day.
There, we can see it better now.
Sorry, how old is this one here, roughly, or do you know?
2015 import, so
Oh, okay.
7 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably about 7, I would say.
Would that be
Are
the
they
same
typically-
my mail came in on?
Yeah, we probably got them around the same, similar imports.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how many
my female
imports.
I got an import a couple years before that. Jim brought them in, J&J's.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many imports they do a year from Madagascar, but
Yeah, I don't remember anymore now, but because I've already got mine, so I haven't really paid attention to it recently.
recently there's been very few imports. Well, for hognoses anyway, it's been mostly like gecko species and stuff like that. The importer specifically contacted me about hognoses if I wanted some. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so that was kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love them. They're very. There's even some variability in color. I find some are a little more gold color in through the body, and some have more of a contrasting pattern.
Yeah, like my new male that I got, he's like super dark goldish compared to some of my other ones where they're kind of more yellow. I find the females don't lack as much bright color to them, so the female's a little bit darker. So it could be just an attraction factor for them. The males are a little bit brighter, so the females choose that one.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
from my research, males are a lot bigger because they do combat in the wild, so they fight each other. So males are typically bigger. And
That's funny. I found the opposite for some reason, but I've only got my pair, so my female's quite a bit bigger than the male, but she's also a couple of years older than them too. But they're still.
My male's huge. I'll pull him out.
That female, Brandon, is quite active. Are they a very active species?
Yeah, they are very active.
So how are you keeping them? Maybe run us through how you're keeping your hogs there, what you're using for substrate, temperatures, that kind of stuff. While you're doing that, Jalen, I'll tell you offline about the name.
Oh, come on. How come all my stories have to be told online?
I know. That's Cornell's World After Dark.
Oh, as he sat down, he froze.
Yeah.
Am I unfrozen now?
You're good. You're good now.
So this is the male. He's a bit bigger. He's in shed, so I don't want to handle him too much. But he's quite a bit bigger. He's got a bigger head on him compared to my female. There we go. Yeah, you can see he's in blue. So he's starting to shed. I find that the males have a little bit longer tail than the females, but it's not significantly much longer. He's not a very good example. He looks pretty dark right now, but I keep mine on cocoa husk and cocoa fiber substrates. So I do the cocoa chip and the cocoa fiber. I do leaf litter and a mix of topsoil with that as well, because they like to dig, so it keeps it kind of loose. My giants don't dig nearly as much as my speckleds or my blondes for whatever reason. Yeah, well, it is kind of interesting because some of the research that I found that the giants, when in the wild, they'll dig a pleuris egg colonies, eggs. So when the pleuris lays eggs, they will dig them up with their snout. So in the wild, they typically eat a lot of lizard eggs.
Right. So that makes sense. A lot of hognoses eat, other reptiles, right? Frogs and amphibians as well.
Yeah. Yeah. From the herpetologists that I talked to, they haven't seen them eating other snakes or reptiles or amphibians in the wild. You've seen them eating a lot of eggs. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of neat compared to some of the other species and stuff. There's not much research done on them.
No.
And
I heard anecdotally a lot of lizard eating, and it makes sense with lizards and frogs. I found my babies getting them started with sending them with frogs' legs. Helped eventually getting them started.
I tried that, and it didn't work for me anyway. they got started on ASF's unscented, which I was happy that they started, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that it worked for me, but might not work in all cases.
Yeah,
So.
and it's a good point of it. Like a lot of different things will work for a lot of different people, right? So
yeah,
there's no one cure all or be all end all, right? So,
yeah, and that's also the thing with some of these obscure species that aren't bred in captivity either. Is they're not necessarily going to be accustomed to eating rats and mice either, so you're going to have to offer other sources of prey. So later this year, I'm going to order in some frogs and some feeder lizards to try to establish hatchlings and whatnot, see if that works, because I'm also hopefully going to get Speckled Hognose hatchlings, and I have no idea what they eat. So
I would probably start looking at the natural kind of the lizards from the area they're native to, right?
Yeah, I've been looking at getting some Plura species and see if the hatchlings would eat their eggs. I'm not sure how big their eggs would be, because they could be a little bit too big for hatchlings, but it's worth a shot. See if it's something that they would eat and establish on. Even just the scent might work. So,
yeah.
Joe Birch is asking how many eggs typically in hatchling size.
I had a 12 egg clutch, but only 9 were fertile. And hatchlings hatch out at about a foot long.
Holy
so they were fat too, I found.
They're big fat babies.
Yeah.
Actually got one of my hatchlings from November. They hatched out on November 18th of last year.
Oh,
so
wow.
they're a few months old. It was a really late clutch. I was really surprised to find it. So it was laid in like September, so it took 87 days for them to hatch out at 80 degrees. So I incubated mine at a lower temperature, so it just takes a little bit longer. I didn't want to risk the chance of cooking the clutch. So, because in the wild, I also don't know what temperatures the eggs would be incubated at. It could be possibly warmer, could be possibly cooler, because they're a burrowing species and females have been known to lay communally in burrows. So that could play into a factor in temperature and everything else if there's multiple females together. Because I noticed with mine, the females were protecting the eggs as much as they could. They did not want me to take them. And in the wild, they noticed that females protect their eggs through most of the maternal incubation period.
Yeah, so it was a fight for me to grab my eggs too.
Oh yeah, my female didn't want anything to do with me. She was giving me false strikes left, right, and center. And,
I saw Vanessa earlier was saying that the adults aren't as angry as the hatchlings, though.
Oh, the hatchlings are terrible. They would bite me all the time and not eat food. So everything, I would get bit by all of them when I was go to change substrate, try to feed them or whatever, because I ended up having to try to assist feed them because they wouldn't eat. It worked in some cases. I tried like rat tails and other stuff just to see if it would be easier to get down, but they didn't want that at all. So I ended up losing a bunch of the hatchlings, unfortunately. So I have 3 left right now, but they're all doing well. They eat consistently every week and they're growing. Excuse me. And a lot of them, I noticed they weren't doing too well when they would start getting really weak and they would keep refusing food and then they wouldn't fight back at all. So I knew that they wouldn't last very long, unfortunately. But
yeah, have you got a hatchling you can show us there?
Yeah, I got 1 hatchling and a juvenile from last year.
Thanks for finally joining us, Dee.
Yeah, good to see you. I see Jimmy's here too, and Tanya, and Mark. We got a bunch of people popping in here, so thank you, Wade, for taking the time to come in. And feel free to just start throwing in questions too, guys. If you have anything you want to talk about or ask or whatever, by all means, please do.
Ow!
When you were saying that they were pretty aggressive and bitey, I was just going to say that's just setting you up for raising children now that you're expecting. So
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Vanessa's expecting, not him.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is one of the hatchlings. I hope it just doesn't shit all over my computer. So you can see they're pretty big now, but they're little less girthy when they came out, but they've gained quite a bit of length so far.
Nice.
And so far that I've been handling them, they're less bitey for the most part.
So if they were about a foot when they were born, like roughly what sort of diameter would they have been? About a half an inch?
Yeah, about that.
And then how big were the eggs?
I didn't measure, but they were pretty big eggs. So
yeah.
Yeah, the eggs are surprisingly big for the size of snake too. I found almost like pine snakes, but not quite as big as pine snake eggs. But compared to bog snakes.
One of my friends, he breeds womas, and he said these were bigger than his womas when they hatched out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, absolutely. One thing to note too, for people that are watching, so these are technically rear-fanged venomous snakes. The venom is not considered medically significant to humans, but it's something to be aware of. You may have allergies and stuff too.
Yeah, you could be allergic to something in the proteins in the venom, which is a possibility. So you could go into anaphylactic shock, but it's not designed really to kill anything. So this is one of the captive-born hatchlings that I got from Ryan, and this was produced in early 2019. So
nice.
This guy's nice and big. He eats really well. Most of the hatchlings now are all drop feeders. This guy's a drop feeder. He won't eat off tongs because they're a pretty shy and flighty species. So,
Tyrone's got a good question. Do you keep any other reptiles other than hognose?
Yeah, I got some tegus. I got a couple boas. I keep leopard geckos and 2 other species of hognose.
Nice. So let's see one of the other species of hognose you got here.
The next one I have is my speckled hognose.
Yeah, I found out the hard way with the babies as well. When I was cupping them up for a show, when I was going to sell them, every single one of them chewed on me.
Yeah.
And I had no reaction whatsoever, so it was really significant.
And they they stress really
know,
easy too. So, so this is the speckled hognoses if they cooperate. This is the male and female. I got them paired up currently. So the females in this species are bigger than the males compared to the giants, or the males I find is bigger anyway. And
so Lynn Armstrong was commenting on your choice of underpants.
I thought that's what might be what she was referencing.
Yeah. I know that's where she was going with that. I was going to make a comment about being a plumber, but I just left it alone.
I should have been a plumber.
You mean both.
But yeah, these are the speckles. These are both adults, and so they're full grown, and they get to be like 3 feet. So they're pretty small and not super girthy compared to the giants. So they're also diurnal, to my knowledge anyway.
Yeah.
There's even less research on these guys than the giants. So, and these guys come in from like the southwest portion of Madagascar compared to the giants, where they come from pretty much the whole island. So the giants can be found all over the island, from forest areas to dry, arid areas and higher elevations on the island. These guys only come from the southwest portion, where it gets really hot and they see like no rain.
I found a commonality with that too. Like with snake species, you'll notice the giants are a lot darker from the higher elevations. It's cooler. They need the dark coloration to absorb more heat.
Yeah.
Whereas those guys are a lot lighter, more closer to sea level. It's warmer.
Yeah, these guys are pretty brown and kind of brownish blackish. So they got some pretty cool colorations. They have slightly different snouts. Where's the camera? Yeah, there. Sort of. Yeah, you can kind of see that. They have sort of different snouts than the giants. It's kind of
upturned.
Yeah,
still sort of upturned. But.
Yeah, it's more pronounced compared, kind of like the westerns in this species, I noticed. But they have a variation in snouts, I've noticed. So female has a kind of more pronounced snout. Some of my males have more of a rounded snout on them, It's just probably a variation in the species, I would assume. So they're pretty cool. They stay pretty small, so they don't require huge enclosures.
What size are those ones behind you? They're 4x2 by like 18, probably.
4x2 by 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a Greg 18 inches.
Yeah. We call that an Irish 18.
Irish 18, yeah. That's a foot. No, that's a foot.
Mark Barrett saying, if you could, would you keep Westerns too? That's one thing I was going to bring up, which anybody who's watching us from outside of Alberta, we can't keep the Westerns or the Eastern Hognose species in Alberta. So we are a little bit more limited with the Hognose species that we can keep here.
Yeah, if we could, though, I would definitely keep Westerns. I love Western hogs.
I had Westerns, and they were really derpy, kind of not very smart snakes. They were awesome, and they stayed pretty small, which was nice. So if you don't have a lot of room to keep a larger species, it's great. But I personally like the Speckleds over the Westerns myself.
But I wonder if the Westerns are that way, probably from a lot of inbreeding with all the morphs. Any of the morph-driven stuff seems to people sort of push a lot of. They're trying to breed those morphs, the line breeding. You get a lot of inbreeding, and they kind of get a little. They need a little banjo in there.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of trying to have distinct lines of my giants. So breed one male to one female, and breed my other male to my other female later, and just to hopefully outcross that eventually. Because I don't want to. There was a lot of wild caught imports brought in, so there's a lot of unrelated. Anybody that's got them right now, most of them are pretty much unrelated anyway. So we've got a decent gene pool to work with. Yeah, it's a good gene pool, and that way you can also try to keep it not as muddied up for future generations. So
there's no morphs, right? So you don't have to worry about.
There's some that Ryan has, and it's really orangish yellow on the top. And it's super cool looking, and that's one he got from you. And it's probably the most odd looking colored one that I've seen so far for the giants.
Yeah, that's some of the babies were really brightly colored.
I think that might be a locale thing too. So when I was talking to the herpetologist there, he studies Madagascar. He had no idea. He's like, I think there's locales, but there's no research done on it, so it's a possibility. But there's just nobody doing the research for that yet. Oh, I see. There's a comment there.
Greg, you were going to handle that question there.
Which one?
Danielle's question.
Well, it's kind of been answered in the comments. You're talking about this one?
The one she was curious. What led you to get into hognose snakes in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I got giants first because I kind of wanted like a larger color and just the upturned snout kind of seemed cool to me, and their coloration and pattern, and that they weren't super commonly kept either. So that was kind of a feature to me, something that it's a little bit harder to work with. When I got mine, there was no information basically on them, so it was kind of trial and error, which is kind of unfortunate for a lot of species that people are getting into, some newer species. But they did really well because I did research a lot of the climates on the island, a lot of humidities, temperatures in different ranges, because the giants come from such a wide range. So I was seeing what temperatures they can be kept at successfully and all that, see how much rainfall there is throughout the year, what time is the dry season, the wet season. So that kind of should help me pinpoint breeding season. Yeah. So
what humidity levels for these guys? Are they like a more humid species or not really?
I missed mine down when I remember, but they can handle quite a bit of range of humidities because they come from such a wide range on the island. So they're pretty adaptable animals.
Yeah. Well, I think the key is what you were saying is that because they're found all over the island, there's a lot of different, microclimates in Madagascar where it can be drier and wetter and stuff. And the fact that they're found in all of them kind of alludes to the fact that they're probably pretty hardy and can tolerate a big selection of humidity.
Yeah, and also if you provide a moist hide too, that really helps too. So because if they're a burrowing species, so they probably hide in dens. Like when females are laying in dens, there's going to be a lot more humidity in there. So that's also something to take into consideration. But yeah, I miss mine like once a week, so it doesn't stay super humid all the time. But so it's probably around 40 to 60%.
There was a good question here. When you decide to keep a species that there isn't much info on, how do you go about getting the best info possible?
Research where they come from. So if there's information on climate in that area, not all places will have that, but Madagascar had a pretty good map on different areas of the island where it was this temperature throughout the year, it got this much rainfall, and the humidity was this level throughout the year. It's usually by months. Sometimes it doesn't give you good direct, like it was rained for 3 weeks or whatever. Sometimes it does that in Madagascar, and in certain portions of the island there was no rainfall, like in southwest Madagascar where the speckleds come from. So, and then also if you can, try to talk to some herpetologists that have information, because sometimes they'll have their documents written up on the species, or they'll be able to just tell you some stuff. That's also what I did. I was looking online for some more information on the hognoses, and I found a herpetologist that did a short little paragraph and took some pictures. So I figured I'd reach out and see if he had any answers to my questions. He had some, but not a lot.
I think a key to that too is to ask, to also talk to people, other keepers, experienced keepers, guys that are working with them, if there are any out there, and everybody can kind of pool that information, right? Everybody's stuff will be a little different, but you can kind of see some commonalities of things that are working over the course of time. So it's like all the research, books, like you said, climate, and not just climate, but microclimate too is a big thing.
Yeah, because they're a ground-dwelling species, so during that period of rainfall, it's going to be really damp on the ground. So if they're going to be hiding in dens and stuff from other animals, they're going to take advantage of that humidity.
Angela is saying, do you know what the reasons are in your area for not being able to keep Westerns versus what you are able to keep? We have Westerns that are native here, so that's the reason for the Westerns not being able to be kept here. I was going to ask you guys, why can't we keep Easterns?
It was originally because of when they wrote the regulations up, there was a few reasons for things they banned, and one of them was if they thought there was a potential for them to establish themselves if they were to be released. So that was one of the considerations they took when they were doing the regulations is, is it dangerous? No. Well, we checked off all those things. If it gets big enough to be dangerous or venomous or whatever, then if it's native, they don't want that. And then it became if they could potentially establish themselves. So they felt that there was the possibility that they could. And sometimes it's just if they're close enough in look and stuff, it's a bit lazy.
Yeah, just like with the southern hognose, because there's like a slight scalation count difference, and they weren't able to visually tell that they were not the same species.
There's overlap too, so there could, there's a gray area in the middle there too.
Yeah, because there's a big line down like the center of the states where they overlap with the western hognose because they cover a lot more area in the United States than they do here in Canada.
Different subspecies.
Yeah.
But Angela, we're also sorry.
No, we're not. We've been cooped up too long at home. We are not sorry anymore.
Angela's one of our American friends, and it's a running joke about us always being sorry because we're Canadian.
Chris had a question about where they're collected from. I don't know where they're collected from because when I get them, they're just Madagascar imports. So I was actually talking to the herpetologist about if he knew anybody that was collecting these animals and get in contact with them to see if they were collecting from different areas to find out if there was any locale differences. because I did notice there's some color differences and a little bit of scalation in the face that seems to be a little bit different. Some of them had longer certain scales on the face, and I noticed that there's a little bit different number count on the head structure too in some places on the scales. So I'm not sure if that is locale specific or if that's just natural variation.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's probably natural variation, but again, who knows, right? And the problem is when they're collecting stuff, they're not keeping a lot of data as to where they're collecting from. They just group them all together and ship them off. You know, it happens, you know, all over Africa, especially. And in places where there's sort of sketchy regulations, they'll ship them to another country and then ship from there, and it kind of becomes a gray area. You don't know exactly where they're collected from. Nobody's really tracking that.
And the people who are collecting them, they're usually working for the importer. So you go collect me this many snakes and I'm going to pay you.
Yeah.
So,
and
it also,
I mean, for them, it's all about how quickly they can do it and how much money they're going to make by doing it. So I wouldn't imagine there's really any data or any logging of where they were collected from.
Yeah, and it also depends on the time of year too. So, because during the wet season they'd be out more. Because I was on a Madagascar snake spotting page, and the giants during the wet season were out a lot. So people would be seeing like 4 to 5 of them a day, and they were just going through villages and homes too. So they'd just be moseying on by to go wherever they need to.
I wonder if that is sort of more of a breeding season for them too, right? Like a lot of snakes.
It might be, and it also might be just that there's more abundance of food because of the wet season is drowning out all the burrows and stuff, so all the mice and everything or whatever they're eating are out more. So that could be a possibility for that.
Mark Barrett is asking, are there many giant hognose keepers in Western Canada?
I know of probably like 5 here in Alberta. Yeah. And there's some people in BC that recently got speckleds and blondes, because I get all sorts of people messaging me questions. Hey, I heard you keep these. Can you tell me more information?
I don't know what to do with these.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of those questions too with the giants. But there's not a lot of people. They're not super common. And not a lot of people have successfully bred them. Typically, most of the breeding success early on was ones that came in already pregnant.
Yeah.
When I bred mine, as far as I could tell, that was the first time in 10 years anybody had bred giant hognose that had raised them from babies, and they weren't imports that were brought in as adults and were already pregnant.
Yeah.
Or with eggs gravid.
I know there's quite a few breeders in Europe that have been pretty successful, but it's still not a whole lot. Because Ryan got his breeding pair from Belgium, and they were already previously breeding. So so it's just hit and miss. I don't believe anybody has bred speckleds in Canada yet, to my knowledge.
I don't know of any either.
Or blondes. So if I can get either of those going, that'd be pretty cool. I'm not sure how the hatchlings will establish. So because the blondes, they're from a super small portion of the island.
They're really pretty snakes too. Like, they look really nice.
They actually
big, round pupils, cartoon-looking faces, or
I'll pull up my blonde. I got one here in the living room as well.
Show us your blondes. We want to see the blondes.
The blonde hog.
Yeah. Don't mind me. I just got a message. The bartender.
That's nice. I don't have a bartender tonight. I'm on my own. I have to put Brandon on full screen so I can go get another drink.
This female bit me last time I had her on screen.
That's
perfect.
That's promising.
Yeah. So these guys are also pretty small. They're probably about the same size as the speckleds, but they're not nearly as girthy.
You have big eyes.
Yeah, they got really big eyes.
Now, where did you get those from? Did you get those from Jim?
This one is a 2020 import. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she came in with some damage. Where did it go? She's came in a little scarred up. It's here somewhere. She had a couple holes in her. They might have healed up already because they were all scabbed over.
Oh, speaking of blonde hogs, hey Noah.
Ah! Yeah, I'm getting bit. Real
There you
good.
go. So typically when a rear fang venomous snake bites you and starts to chew on you, you don't want to let them do that.
Not usually. And yeah, you can see the 2 damage spots there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep.
I'm not sure where they're from. It looks like it's probably a bite from something because they're pretty perpendicular. So she got me pretty good.
Yep.
I think it's even better the fact that you screamed like a girl on live.
That's right.
That was a manly scream. Come on now.
I actually thought you were having a seizure for a second.
Live snake drama. There you go. Angela's loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She doesn't even give me. Ooh, that's tingling.
So Carly's got a question here for you. Hey, Carly, by the way. It says, was it a bit of a trial and error experience for you when you started breeding them? And how long did it take you to get the conditions just right?
Well, I got my male from Vannon, and he never had success. And then I paired my male up with another female that wasn't the one I got from him, and they just locked. So I think I might have just been really lucky. So, but I did cool them and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I can recreate the methods that I did last year.
Nice. Was the female one you got from me or no?
I got a male from you, and it regurgitated and it died, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate.
I can't remember. I thought you had 2, but I guess it was just the one.
Yeah, it was just the one. Yeah, this female does not like me. She's wild caught, so I'm not surprised she bit me at all.
Yeah.
How old is she?
Probably like 2 years, 3 years. But she came on this year's import, so she's a fresh import. So with my animals that I get from that are wild caught, they are on 90-day quarantine. So I always handle these guys last and clean them last, just so I don't have any transfer of anything. Because
do you notice with them with more handling that they do tame down, or do they always kind of are kind of bitey?
They kind of tame down over time. My one wild caught female back there, she's still hates me. My other ones are pretty good, so they're usually generally pretty handleable. My other blonde male, he's super handleable. He's a lot more chill than this female.
So the other female, how long have you had her for? The other one you talked about. That was grumpy.
The grumpy one, 2015.
Oh, okay. You've had her since then, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was brought to Canada and shipped to me. So, and so along with wild caught imports too, there's also parasites and other stuff that you have to deal with. And sometimes they come with damage, like this female. You can see on her tail that there's a little bit of damage on there, small spots and stuff. So they're not always going to look perfect like some of your captive bred species.
Dee's asking, is 3 months typical for your quarantine on your wild caught species?
Yeah, I do 3 months all the time on my wild caught species. Unless there's something that comes up, then I'll just restart the clock.
Maybe you can also. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say exactly what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. If you want to run through your what your typical quarantine procedures are.
Okay, I'll put this female back first.
Also, hey, Michael.
Hey, Michael. Have you heard yet for Tinley if it's a go? We don't. I don't see a lot of stuff on the U.S. shows if they're still going ahead or not.
When would it be? What?
Well, I know there's one in October, but I feel like there might be one in the summer, but maybe I'm wrong.
I thought so too, but I've never been. So
I want to go to Tinley one of these days.
Tinley is definitely tops on our list to go to as well. Oh no, Noah's saying it's not till October, so there is time. The other one is canceled. Oh, so maybe there was
the other one typically, Noah. We don't need to wait for the answer.
Yeah. No.
Everybody stops.
Well, back to the
What
corn.
about your quarantine procedures? Run us through those while we're waiting for Noah to answer.
So I do a lot of wild caught quarantine. So I usually just bring them home, set them up, leave them for a week or two before I even try feeding. I do not give them dewormer until a month. So because they're stressed from shipping, they're stressed from being put into some other place that they don't know what it is. And you just want them to relax, get a couple meals in them, monitor their poops. With these guys, their poops are generally kind of runny sometimes anyway, so it's kind of hard to tell if they got parasites. So I do deworm them after a month. These guys will be getting dewormed probably here shortly, but I just don't like to deworm them right away because that puts a lot of stress on their body.
Yeah, it's harsh on them too. I find too, like, to just touch on that, when I bring wild caught stuff in, I haven't done it for a while. I used to bring a lot of wild caught in. And it would be, again, I'd have them in a separate room, handle them last, all your typical quarantine procedures where those are the last things to deal with. Everything's all separate. Literally change your clothes, throw them in the wash when you're done. But I find that too, that one of the important things is to hydrate them before you feed them.
Yeah.
If they're dehydrated and trying to eat, that's when you're going to have a lot of issues. And typically a lot of stuff when they come in, they're very dehydrated. They're not shipping with water. And you can't do that. So a lot of them are really dehydrated, and you want to make sure they're properly hydrated before they start trying to eat.
Yeah. I always make sure they have large enough water bowls to soak in if they need to, or take a drink or whatever else they need to do. So, yeah, I just make sure to touch them last, deal with them last, after I clean everybody else.
Do you, I mean, most people would like to have them in separate rooms if it like a quarantine room. So do you keep them in separate rooms, or you just?
I keep them as far away from my collection as possible. So I got animals all over the place, unfortunately. So
typical reptile.
Sounds like a shop.
Yeah. What do you typically deworm with?
Usually Panicure, and then I can't remember the other dewormer because I usually use 2 dewormers because Panicure only covers a certain spectrum of parasites, and then the other one picks up that other load of parasites that might be in there. So I usually do 2 dewormers. I usually consult with my vet, and they usually know that I'm getting wild-caught animals in, and then I bring them to them, they weigh them, and then they give me the dewormer. I think that's a little bit better than trying to dose it yourself. And then I'm also can get the 2 dewormers because the one is hard to get.
Sorry. Did you get any on you there?
No.
That was pretty beefy. I like how you're like a true pro. You just kept on going. Didn't even skip a beat.
That's right.
It's like you've done that before.
Once or twice.
All right. Well, speaking of that, I guess the other aspect of this conversation is you are one of the co-hosts for the Canadian Herpetoculture podcast. So why don't you?
Hey, you did it.
I did do it.
You could say big words. Congratulations.
No.
It only takes 2 beers.
Big word.
I said 1, so I've hit my limit today, and we're good.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that, how it got started, and I guess where you guys are at.
So my co-host Kiana Fox started Canadian Herpetoculture podcast. She started a Facebook page, and she was approaching other people to co-host. Some other people declined or just weren't putting the effort forward, and she asked me to help co-host, and then we both put the effort in forward to get it started. And it took off on February 8th with our first episode. And we've been interviewing vets, hobbyists, store owners, herpetologists, and other various people in the herpetoculture scene, just so we can bring out the information to the public, because sometimes you won't necessarily get these chances to talk to vets and get asked the questions that we were able to ask, or you might not be able to talk to herpetologists and stuff like that. And it's just we try to bring as much information to the public. We want to bring some other stuff that we have planned. So it's just all a matter of scheduling with people to talk to them. And yeah, there's big stuff planned. We like to do the lives, so it gets lots of interaction like this. People get to ask questions. And
how's it been? Have you been enjoying it, or what's the?
Yeah, I actually, even if we didn't have listeners, I'd still be happy to do it because I learn a lot. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know before until I got the chance to talk to like the herpetologists, the vets, and stuff like that. So it's just getting that one-on-one time with that other person and learning more about them and their experience as keepers or veterinarians or other professions in the hobby.
I think that's a key in the hobby too, is always be learning. Like there's so much we don't know, and there's such a small amount of research ever being done with any of these animals that, stuff like that. It's good to see that happening. So
yeah, and it's just able to bring that information for the people because not everybody's able to take the time out of the day to talk to people one-on-one. So it gives us a chance to talk to people from all over the world, like the herpetologist. He lives in Germany, so that was hard to schedule, but we made it work and brought the episode out there. And I learned what chicken breast gecko was, which is gecko lepus. So it sheds its skin entirely when predators are trying to eat it. So it looks like a chicken breast. It's crazy. So that was something I didn't know existed. And so that was pretty cool.
Naked, sheds its skin, drops that, and runs away.
Yeah. Instead of dropping its tail, it just drops its skin.
Yeah. Why not, right?
I think Chris mentioned something or commented here. The hobby needs more people involved and showing passion, pushing it forward. And I think that's the biggest thing. And kind of what we like to do with doing these lives is trying to show our passion and, our knowledge and trying to further the hobby. Going into the Facebook pages, there's a lot of infighting, and definitely within the hobby these days, like that's the last thing we need. So having reptiles seen in a positive light and being able to promote and educate, I think is the key to moving this hobby forward.
Absolutely. And in this format too, it brings the positive stuff to the hobby in a good way. So people aren't just necessarily seeing the crappy things that happen, because there's a lot of positivity things that do happen that aren't highlighted in the media. So I think it's a good platform for people to see the positivity, the people that are actually trying to care for the animals and do the right thing.
Yeah, we all like to have a little fun in the meantime too. And I think part of it too is that with the internet, like literally anybody and everybody has a voice, which is good and bad. It's nice to have things like this where you can talk to people that are experienced instead of just regurgitating information they've seen put forward somewhere else. People that have actually got hands-on experience, or people that have got the education background, all that kind of stuff. It all comes together and helps. And when you can have people that you trust and that have that basis for that knowledge, that helps, kind of solidify the information you're getting. That there's a lot less questions involved in that.
Absolutely. And one of my goals with the podcast too is kind of bring the academia side of things, like the herpetologists, the people who are doing the research, to the hobbyists, to bring that information, because it seems like a lot of the hobbyists and research people don't really get along too well.
Yeah.
So it's funny. There's a fine divide there, and they don't really have much involvement within the hobbyist community, which is kind of weird, actually.
A lot of the herpetologists and stuff that I've been talking to, they actually keep reptiles as hobbyists as well. Yeah. So, which is pretty interesting. Some of the researchers that are like researching viruses and stuff don't keep reptiles, but they're looking into these things, which is kind of cool.
Well, we see a lot of crossover, like with zookeepers and stuff too. Guys that have, for years and years been involved with the internet. A lot of them got pushed away. They didn't have any time for it and stuff. And you're starting to see some of them come back. It's just nice to see that it's kind of bridging the gap, right?
Yeah, and there's some zookeepers that I do talk to. There's one, he actually keeps giants at home as well. He had a clutch last year, but there was only one viable egg, and he was able to catch their breeding on camera because he put a camera in there, so that was a cool video to watch. It's posted to his YouTube. And he's also a zookeeper too. So he works with animals at home and works with animals at the zoo.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he keeps animals differently at home than he does at the zoo.
Oh, Emma's joining us. Happy birthday, Emma.
Yeah, happy birthday, Emma. So when you were touching on that, how he keeps them different at home than at the zoo, what's the reasons behind that, and how is he keeping them different?
He keeps them kind of like the typical hobbyist. He keeps them in PVC enclosures, not like zoos with the big displays. So, but he's also breeds a lot of Morelia species, so a lot of pythons and stuff. So, so it's kind of interesting to see the crossover. And I was watching some other podcasts, and they had other zookeepers who do this very similar things, is keep them like us hobbyists. So a lot of those zookeepers aren't against racks or PVC cages like behind me and stuff either. So that's kind of interesting.
I just think it's funny that somebody would keep, professionally in a display situation in an institution one way, whereas his own personal collection, he's keeping a different way. And it kind of shows there's kind of more commonality than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's I find that pretty interesting. And not all zookeepers keep pets at home either, because they work with animals every day. But some of them, it seems to be the more reptile specific people keep reptiles at home as well. Because some of the reptile zookeepers, they keep reptiles at home, which is pretty interesting. We've
done quite a bit of stuff for the Calgary Zoo over the last couple of years, and I mean, they have like big, great natural displays, but a lot of their backroom stuff, I mean, it's more about being able to easily disinfect, make it simple and easy to care for within those PVC enclosures. So, I mean, they have their place. They can look really well, and they can be set up naturally too, but being that they're porous, they don't absorb, they're lightweight and easily moved, like they're definitely advantages to using the PVC.
Oh, absolutely. I read a study the other day from the Bronx Zoo, I think it was, and they had 5 Madagascar giant hognoses from the same clutch. They kept them together for 3 years in separate enclosures. On paper towel, a couple of hides, just really basic, sterile, like most people do. And then after the 3 years, they changed it and did another study for 3 years on having a larger enclosure, more space, and substrates to dig in. They did topsoil with sand and something else in the mix. And they offered a lot of hides, a lot of logs, leaf litter, kind of more naturalistic. And they noticed there was more activity in the species and there was less hiding. So that was kind of neat to see the information portrayed that way compared to just like, I keep mine animals this way and this is what they do.
I just wanted to kind of touch, just to change directions for a brief second. Since we're talking about the Calgary Zoo, I wanted to bring up kind of an acquaintance of ours. I didn't know him super well, but Matt did pass away recently, and just wanted to pay our respects to his family and friends. A young fella, 40 years old, with 2 young kids. A lot of us in the hobby, knew or crossed paths with him. He was a real good guy. He'd taken us. We were fortunate to have a little behind-the-scenes tour with the Komodo dragons there. Just a super nice guy. Didn't know him super well, but the 2 times we met him, he was nice, real giving, forthcoming with a lot of information, cool stuff, and just a real sad thing. I know a lot of people in the hobby knew him, so we just wanted to kind of, pay respects as well and to him and his family and his close friends.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I know he worked with Little Rays too and stuff before he worked with the Calgary Zoo.
Yeah.
And so there's affects a lot of people.
It does. He was one of the curators at the Calgary Zoo, and he had left Little Rays to become the curator there. So it was a huge opportunity for him, and it's too bad for him to pass away so young, especially with a young family. But really great guy, and really sad to hear. We were actually working with him a couple of weeks ago, delivering cages to the zoo. So
maybe over the last couple of years, we worked pretty closely with him a few times there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, much respect. Absolutely. Not to bring that down, sorry. Carry on. On that note,
Yeah. To reply to Chris's question, I don't think that the best micro environment enclosures display well in large settings like a zoo. Not really, because the zoo's there kind of to show the animals. So if they're hiding all the time in a microclimate or in a burrow, they don't typically get seen.
yeah.
So.
Although I have to give credit to places like the Calgary Zoo where they'll have displays that have those hides, but they'll have kind of a cross section with some glass or ways to view animals in the hides. But again, a lot of the animals don't make great display animals in a natural habitat because in the wild they're hiding a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking, look at all the pretty plants. Where's the animal?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why in a lot of like zoo settings you don't see a ton of foliage, but there's still some there for them to hide in.
Foliage?
Yeah, cover,
Foliage?
green. Yeah. Fuck. That's the word I was looking for.
Sorry, I had to do that.
It's cool though, like when you get to because we did get to walk around Matt that day that we went and saw the Komodo dragons, and he touched on certain things in certain cage setups which most people walking through there wouldn't understand. Like they had their chameleon enclosure, and they don't want the chameleons interacting with each other, so they've got nice like tree displays, but there's no way for one to get from one tree to the other. And it's kind of interesting seeing how they think of all those different things that as patrons or people who don't necessarily know reptiles all that well, they would never even notice those little fine details.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of design that goes into zoo settings and stuff like that. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Too, especially for a lot of those more naturalistic displays.
You got to think they're trying to show the nature aspect of it and immerse people in the natural part, but they also want to be able to see the animals too. So there's that conflicting
happy medium.
Agendas. Yeah. So while we're on it, let's see some tegus, my friend.
Let's see if they're awake.
Or you could wake one up. Or a sleeping tegu's fine too.
Maybe it would bite him.
He's already got bitten once. We don't want him to get bit anymore. He's never going to come back.
I got tegus that want to bite me.
Perfect. Bring him on.
Oh, I lost the feed on my phone.
That's not a tegu. That's a dog. I hear it barking.
I don't know a lot of tegus that bark.
Oh.
Wow, he's a beast.
Yeah.
He's not happy.
Tell us what we're looking at for people that aren't familiar with tegus.
Falcor, the Argentine black and white tegu, and he's not thrilled. Yeah, you smell poopy. I know. And I got dogs in the background because they don't like the lizard. Yeah, he's a big boy.
Why. He probably looks like a snack.
Yeah, he's got a regrow tail because last year he had to get a tail amputation because he broke his tail.
Oh,
I'm not sure if it was from slamming on the walls or from climbing up on his enclosure, so he had to get a tail amputation. And yeah, so it's regrown. They closed it all up, so they had a big flap that went over, and they sewed it shut. And he decided to regrow his tail because typically, after about 3 years old, tegus do not regrow their tails because they don't need that ability as adults because they're a 10 to 15 pound lizard that really doesn't have any predators in Argentina.
I didn't know they didn't regrow them after that age. That's interesting.
No, well, I didn't know they regrew them at all.
Yeah, they can drop their tails and regrow it, and it's usually all cartilage, so they lose all the vertebrae in their tail.
Right.
We're going to put him back because he does not want to cooperate.
I was going to say, yeah. Safety. Safety first. We'll put the big, potentially bitey lizard away for now.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
The big, bitey, shitty lizard.
Yeah. So Dee's got a great
Here's
question.
your question. What is the best, what's the best size enclosure for a tegu as far as when it's a baby than adult?
A lot of people keep them in like 4x2x2s as hatchlings, but that's what I started off with for like the first year, and then I went to an 8x4x4. So that's a big enclosure.
Yeah.
And they require like 12 inches or more of substrate because they burrow. Excuse me. Burping up a storm over here. So yeah, you want to make sure that they have lots of space. I have elevated platforms for my water dish and my basking platform, so it doesn't take away from the floor space, and they can utilize the space underneath the basking platform and the water dish as hides. So they also get exercise from climbing up to the hide and to the water dish, because typically tegus get really obese in captivity because they don't do anything, because they're not providing them spaces to climb and stuff like that. But you don't want to go too high because they're not very gracious climbers and they fall. And they don't fall very well. They have like land on their back or their sides and stuff. So you want to be cautious on how tall you're going. So I usually go like 16 inches high on my basking platform. So I build a ramp so they go up and down on that, so they get at least some exercise. And then I also, when I feed them whole prey, I make them kind of chase for it. So that also gives them a little bit of exercise as well. And they free roam my house for an hour or two a day.
Do you have like the cage that they're kept in? Is it just like an open top type cage, being that big?
No, it's fully sealed because they require 80 to 100% humidity. And here in Alberta, our humidity sucks.
Yeah.
So
less than 20% usually. Ambient.
Yeah. So I run a Mist King, and I also run an ultrasonic humidifier in my enclosure as well.
You notice your head was really larger, Chris. What kind of lighting do you use for your tegus?
Since they are adults, I use a row of 3 par 38s, and then I run a 36-inch Arcadia tube T5 bulb. I run the 12%, and I run that 16 inches for my basking platform, which gives me a temperature of 118 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So
Michael Schramm had a good question here. He's curious, being down in the U.S., he's been having trouble finding certain things like live insects and various supplies. One thing I wanted to touch on is you guys have dubia roaches available to you there that we can't have up here. Those are good insect feeders.
We can have 2 species of roaches that are legal now. Or well, they are legal, not now, but there's 2 species. It's an Australian species, and I can't remember the other one.
I thought there were German roaches as well.
In Ontario selling them.
Yeah, and they're actually legal because they're found in Canada, so you just have to have paperwork stating where they came from, how long they've been in captivity, so on and so forth. So if you're buying from somebody, make sure you keep the receipts.
This is just a funny comment. Do you guys ever have guests without beards? Time to shave, fellas. Start a trend. Hey, I feel like we've both trimmed down quite a bit.
We've had quite a few female guests too, Joe. So careful, careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always run 3 lights with my tegus because they're such large lizards that you have to cover their whole body. And if you run 1 light, you run the risk of creating hot spots, and they'll curl up into a ball, and then they'll get hot spots and burn themselves. So we're like his 5th owner, and he has previous burns from that are all scarred up on him, and they are starting to grow scales and coloration back, which is nice. Even with his tail amputation, he's still doing really well. So you always want to make sure that you're covering the whole animal, especially large lizards. Because, yeah, it creates hot spots, creates burns, and then you have another vet bill, and that can get really expensive. So if you can stray away from that and do things properly, that helps in the long run.
How many total reptiles do you have in your collection?
Oh, I stopped counting. I think I have 30. So it's not that many, but it's still enough.
Well,
Yeah.
you got some big animals like tegus and stuff. So.
Yeah, I have three. I have 3 tegus. I have 2 Argentines and a Colombian. So they take up a lot of space. And my Colombian, I'm not going to pull her out because she is angry. She's worse than him.
As they usually are, yeah. So you said you had some boas or something too?
Yeah, I have a Central American Motley. I have a Sunglow, and I have a normal. My normal is a complete dick. Every time I pass by the enclosure, he strikes at it.
So we want to see the normal boa.
Yeah. Sunglow for sure. Those things are awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Brandon Millichamp, a hobbyist breeder of hognoses, as well as he's the co-host on Canadian Herpetoculture podcast. So make sure you check that out on Facebook. Are you on Instagram? I don't know if you are.
Yeah,
or not.
yeah. The podcast is on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And do you have your own page for the hognoses or no?
Not yet. I kind of started creating one, but I don't have a logo yet, so slowly working on it. So this is my Central American Motley. She's been shed. She recently had to go to the vet because she had an abscess in her nose. I'm not sure if she'll cooperate, but I gotta open it back up, flush her nose out, but you can see that hole there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she had an abscess and that had to be cleaned out and everything. So she had to get that lanced twice now, because it was a reoccurring issue because some of the bacteria gets underneath the scar tissue and then eventually just comes back. So hopefully it does not come back anymore after we lanced it a couple of times.
What's the reason? Like, how does it get it? Just rubbing or?
Yeah, she nose rubbed quite a few years ago and then it healed up. And then every couple of years it pops back up, unfortunately. But it's not deep into the tissue. So that's really nice because if it gets prolonged and you don't take care of it soon enough, you'll get mouth rot and it'll start going into the upper jaw. And then that becomes a bigger problem and it can affect the animal's quality of life.
How big is that snake?
She's probably about 6 feet. She's not super big as some boas, but she's a manageable size. She's about 18 pounds last time we weighed her. So, and
how big of a cage is she in?
She's in a 4x2 by 16 as well. I want to upgrade her to a 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot and put in some more climbing stuff for her.
Cool.
So hopefully in the future I can put her in a bigger cage. I think I know a couple of guys that can build one.
Yeah, me do too.
Yeah. I was going to answer too on Michael's comment about the supply. I think that's North America wide, well, probably worldwide right now. With everybody being home, it seems like people got more time to focus on their animals and are upgrading or just adding enrichment to their cages. And I mean, we're dealing with the same problems within Cornell's world, even, getting things like the heat panels and thermostats. They just are in short supply right now.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Got to practice safe reptile handling. Hand sanitizer between animals.
Lynn likes noticing your blue underwear, apparently.
You're like a baboon. You just keep bending over and displaying. He's presenting. I'm going to start calling you Baboon Millichamp.
Nice. A male Sunglow. I got him in 2016, I think it was. So
your lighting kind of
washes them out.
Colored. Yeah. Good.
I don't know if that'll help. There we go. Yeah, he's a pretty high orange and yellow Sunglow, so he's really great. He eats well. Males are always smaller in boas, so it's kind of nice that way.
Nice.
Yeah, I got him from Steve Dorn at Got Reptiles.
Nice.
Yeah. He's a great snake. He was my second snake, I think.
Do you know where it originated from before that, or was it bred by Steve?
I'm not sure, to be honest. So I got him from Steve, and he does not remember who he got him from either. So,
but who knows? You know, years ago, right?
yeah, I don't plan to breed boas, so I'm not concerned on whose line it came from, what genetics it's with. They're just really great pets. So I got quite a few animals that are pets, like the boas, the tegus, and some leopard geckos. My focus is the hognoses, and I just enjoy some other species as well. So
yeah, and I think it's important too to, you know, not lose track. I mean, it's all fine and fun to breed stuff, but you know, keeping those pets and stuff is kind of what we all start off in the hobby, right? So it's important to always have that aspect. I find, anyways, it keeps my interest in it. I keep animals as, you know, certainly as pets always.
Joe just said Evermade Applegate style cages may need to yak one of these days. I'm not sure what he did with his cages, but
yeah, I'm not sure what he means exactly. Are you talking the old school with the holes in the floor and the tubs underneath kind of thing, or what are you talking about, Joe? Elaborate, please.
I've done some stuff similar to that where there's compartments below, but
yeah, that's what I used to keep all my pines in. A lot of the old picture office keepers used to always keep them with the sort of subterranean burrows, those kind of holes in the big cage, and they can have different burrows.
The hard part with that is just all the substrate that ends up falling in.
I've had some big dams around it, but yeah, and it takes a lot of space up too.
This is Garth, one of our leopard geckos. We got 3 leopard geckos. They're just super cool.
What morph is that one? I can't tell.
I have no idea. He's just cool looking. I don't really care about morph. He just looks cool.
Leopard.
Yeah, it's a leopard gecko.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's just super cool. I'm going to be working on making them some backgrounds so they can use more area of the enclosure. So
the Zoom excavator works really well for doing that.
I found Exoterra just came out with a new substrate. It's called Stone Desert, and I find it's way better than excavator clay. That's what I'm currently using, and I'm not a big fan of it. But the Stone Desert, I tried a few samples, the styles for backgrounds that I want to do, and so far I find it's a lot better.
Why do you say that?
I find it's better because it doesn't crumble like the excavator clay and doesn't crack nearly as much, and it seems to harden up more. So it's not nearly as loose on the surface over time, I find.
I think part of that too, like from the times we played with it and built some stuff out of it, that in my experience, it depends on the amount of water you use with things. I found that if I mixed it, sometimes the way it was described, it would be a little too dry and tough to work with. If I had a little more water, it was a little easier to work with and hardened really well.
Yeah, I mixed my excavator clay up pretty wet, and then I created like hides and stuff with it too. But I just find it didn't last as long as I'd like, and so far this Stone Desert works a lot better. I think it's more clay to it than it is like a sand type deal to it. So I think that just helps holds its shape a lot better.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we got some ones in the shop that we've had for a few years that they've held their shape. And those were the Zoom Ed guys that built those ones too.
Yeah.
Once we built, if it was too wet, I found it would crack really easy. If it was too wet, it was kind of a little balance there. But again, that's
it's all on personal preference too. So
yeah, exactly.
And the Stone Desert comes in 3 different colors. It comes in black, it comes in like a tan, and it comes in a red color too. So you have a little bit more color options besides excavator clay that's just in red. So yeah, I'm excited to create some backgrounds with that and see how it turns out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Angela was just saying, I have a cross-eyed leopard gecko that I absolutely love. I don't even like leopard geckos.
I have a leopard gecko that is a rescue. He was in a bar for 5 years in a 5-gallon tank. And yeah, he's been with me for 5 years, I think now. And yeah, he does great. He eats, he hunts well. But he was missing some toes and stuff, so that was unfortunate because they didn't take the best of care of him. He was the bar's ambassador, so people go there to see a leopard gecko.
Oh, we got one of our young friends, Izzy, has joined our live. We actually wished her happy birthday a couple weeks back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. From California.
That's really cool.
Yeah, quite a few U.S. people in here tonight, so that's great.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, nice variety.
Yeah, absolutely. We have any international folks in here tonight? We usually get some people from Brazil or Spain or Russia.
When we did our interview with Billy Rose, we had people from Australia and different places in Europe, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a big following on his own.
Yeah, he's got a lot of followers on YouTube.
Yeah, it's always fun when you get people from other countries popping in and and stuff. So that's always cool.
I guess just trying to think of questions to ask. What's your biggest challenge been so far starting your podcast?
Just getting to the audience and people finding it. Like we don't pay for advertising like some people do because it can get quite expensive, and we got quite a bit invested into the podcasting equipment so we can sound as good as we can. I do our own editing because, again, we're not a professional podcast. We don't have a lot of money to pay somebody $50 an episode to edit. So I do all the editing. That was kind of learn it by fly. So I hope the editing is pretty good.
I did think that your burp sounded like it happened right in my my own kitchen here. It was definitely in HD. So
which one?
Well, which one? We got these fancy microphones.
Yeah, there you go.
So they help with the sound and everything too. So so it's been a learning curve because audio equipment is expensive, surprisingly. Like I found out, I was like, holy crap, there's microphones out there that are $1,000.
Yeah,
that was insane. So we were doing it on a budget, so we got some lower end stuff, so it's working for us so far. Eventually we'll probably upgrade when we can. Our podcast isn't quite self-sustaining on its own yet, so we are still out of pocketing a lot of the fees for our hosting sites, our equipment, and all that other stuff, but it takes time to grow and find the audience. So
for sure.
And we've only been around for like 3 months, so I think we're doing really well. We recently hit 1,000 downloads a week ago, so that's really awesome. And this weekend we drop our episode 11. So
good for you guys.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Just to kind of, I guess, kind of wrap it up here, for that aspect of things, where can people find your podcast? Obviously, YouTube.
Yeah, we're on YouTube as Canadian Herpetoculture Podcast. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram as chp.podcast. You can email us topic ideas or want to talk to us at chp.podcast@gmail.com. And I think, and we're on Spotify. Podbean is our hosting site, and we're also on Apple Podcast.
Nice.
So just a few then.
Yeah, just a few platforms.
Chris said that if you fail at the podcast, you could always take up rap battles.
Yeah,
I'm great at rapping.
I was starting to laugh at. I saw that comment. Just try not to laugh.
I feel like maybe he knows something we don't know. Maybe you should spit a few rhymes.
Could you find a wider group of people? That's all I'm asking.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap this up, but thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Brandon, for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
If anybody has any suggestions for who you would like to see on our lives, let us know. Make sure you follow Brandon's on the many different platforms that they're on. And we'll probably, at least in 2 weeks, maybe if we've got somebody lined up, we may do a live next week, but stay tuned.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
And Dee would crush all of us in a rap battle. I'm just saying it right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.